This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
I'm like reading people's stories, or I'm listening to podcasts. I got to pause and I'm just breaking down now. I'm like, oh my God, or else some thought will come to me, or just it'll hit me again. Like, I shouldn't be this last name. This should be my last name. Or, oh my God, I will never know my childhood. And I had a rough one with my parents divorced and evil stepmother and all the drama, like who I am with my anxiety and relationship problems maybe wouldn't be if I had the right dad, or, there's just so much. Yeah. But if you just keep thinking of all that, it's just going to make it worse.
Imagine spitting into a tube, sending off your DNA, and unknowingly turning your life upside down. For me and thousands of others, this is our reality. I'm your host, Alexis Auerselt. In July of 2021, I discovered that I am an NPE, someone who has experienced a non-paternal event. In other words, my biological father isn't who I thought he was. This podcast shares the journeys of people who were shocked by a DNA discovery, mostly through modern DNA testing. We're telling the stories of NPEs, adoptees, and donor-conceived people and their families. This is DNA Surprises. The DNA Surprise community is very familiar with shame and stigma. This week's episode tackles a taboo subject. Shardae took her DNA test for the same reason many Americans do, out of curiosity about her family's indigenous ties. What she uncovered is that her birth certificate father is not her biological father. She is the product of a one-time encounter between her mother and her mother's first cousin. Shardae talks about how she's navigating this information and processing the stigma around her origin story. Thank you for sharing your story, Shardae.
My name is Shardae, and I'm 36, and I'm from Oregon. I grew up the oldest of 4 half-siblings. My parents were married in 1980, and for 5 years they'd been trying to get pregnant. All their friends were getting pregnant, and they were really wanting, to add a baby to their family like everybody else. And I think there's a shame when women can't conceive, or, in that time too. But during their marriage, up until I was conceived, there was, drama. My mom made it known that my dad was pretty unfaithful throughout their marriage. So I was born 1986, and they divorced before I was even 2. So I grew up in split home. My dad quickly remarried, and they had 2 more kids. And then my mom didn't remarry, but she also at the same time had 2 more kids. So I had the 4 siblings. My mom was mostly always a single mom. They were always fighting, my parents, in visitation on the weekends. And my stepmom was not the nicest person towards me. And I just figured, you always have that feeling, or I hear it a lot, that something felt wrong or felt off. And I totally felt that, but I felt like I was the step kid, or she hated my mom, so she treated me differently, and just trying to put on a different face when I'm at my dad's, because he was a fireman, and I actually went to school to be a fireman, trying to make dad proud and always trying to connect with him. any way that I can, because I just always felt like there's this disconnect. You know, his kids, he coached their baseball. I was the athlete though, and they weren't, and he never coached me. So I just, you know, was always trying to get his affection somehow. And to this day, you know, it's very strained, but he's always been there physically, just present, but not ever emotionally. I became a single mom myself, just like my mom. And I was thinking, gosh, I'm going to be just like my mom and struggling. And it was hard, but I somehow got my CDL. So I was driving big semi trucks, and I was able to, move out of my friend's garage with my kids and get my own place. And I had made it, you know, and I had this job. It just boosts my confidence. And next thing you know, COVID happened, and I lost everything. And, you know, it was devastating. Identity crisis, you know, number or what, I don't know. So that was difficult. And, you know, during that time, everybody's bored, and I just wanted to check out my heritage, and was like, why not get one of these tests? So this is 2020, I believe in March of 2020 or May, something like that. When I got the results back, I didn't really understand how to read, you know, or navigate the site. I just mainly wanted to find the Native American. On my mom's side, there's history there, I think Cherokee and tribe or something, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I saw I had like European like percents, but I wasn't impressed. I was kind of disappointed and put it away for a while. And then I'd check back in. I'd had notifications from third or fourth cousins, like, oh, how are we related? And I was like, oh, there's matches, you know. And I hear this so often, like you're not even aware, like you're matching with people, like at least I wasn't. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting, but you know, I'm not really into building a family tree. That wasn't my.
You're really just curious about the ethnic piece.
Yeah, exactly. So I was trying to help them out, but then at the same time, I'm hesitant to, like, they're asking all these, you know, who's your mother? And so, you know, they kind of back and forth. And I put it away again for sort of been last year. I had a new match when I looked, and this match was a girl that came up as a first cousin. And I know a lot of my cousins. I grew up. My family lives pretty close in the same town. So growing up, I knew even second cousins. We'd all be hanging out and grew up together. But this girl, I had no idea who she was. And her symptom organs, you know, I had to learn all this. Her symptom organ number was higher than my known first cousin. That's my mom's niece of her brother. And I was just so curious. It was only like 100 more, but still, why don't I know this person? So I had messaged her, and, you know, she messaged back. I don't even remember, but we just didn't get anywhere for a long time. It seemed months, until all of a sudden her mother pops up. I didn't know it was her mother until she said, "Did you look at my mom's tree?" So I'm looking, and her mother, you know, came up as like an aunt. A half aunt. Eventually, I find out through this cousin saying, "Oh, well, my mom has two brothers from Oregon." And I'm like, "Oh," and she named two, and one of the names I know as my mom's first cousin that I knew growing up, and I knew his daughter. She's my age, and, you know, as little cousins, all of us girls in the same age, we'd always have pictures together. I'm trying to piece it together still. I'm like, oh, okay, so that's how we're related, you know, because her mom's related to this cousin that I'm related to. So, but still, I didn't know. I only knew he had one sister locally or whatever, and didn't know of this other sister, but she's in a different state. And so I'm asking my mom, I'm like, do you know this lady? And she's like, oh, no, don't think I do. Like, and it was just on my mind. I'm like I had notebooks of trees and like drawing and name and writing all this like pages worth of just trying to investigate and do this myself, because I'm pretty good at obsessively researching things. So I still was just swirling with brainstorming thoughts, like maybe my grandpa, my mom's dad, got with my grandma's sister, and, you know, because something was a little weird here.
Yeah.
And then because it got weirder when I asked the cousin if the mom of her mom was my mom's cousin's mom, if they shared the same mom.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, because that's how I'm related to my mom's cousin, is through his mother. It's like, if you're following, that's kind of confusing, but
I understand. So this new match that you found, who is a cousin, showing up as a cousin, first cousin is what she shows up as, correct?
First cousin, maybe half, but yeah, it says first cousin.
Her mother is siblings with your mom's cousin.
Correct.
So you're trying to piece it together to figure out, okay, how is there a connection?
Yeah.
Is she a half sibling with the cousin through your grandfather or something weird like that? Okay.
But as far as I know, I'm just related to my mother's cousin through his mother. And when she told me, no, they don't share the same mother, they share the same father, I was like, wait, okay. That doesn't make sense, because I shouldn't be related to him through his father, right? Like I'm like, that's not how that works. It broke the link
in what you thought was the connection.
Yeah. So I was still like not ever considering anything, you know, that my parents are my parents at all. I told my mom that, you know, and she's like, She told me they were planning to, my brother was having a birthday lunch or something, and they were all going to meet, and I wanted to tell my mom's kids, so my other siblings, you know, see if what they would come up with, or this is like on the front of my mind here, and family scandal, I'm going to figure it out. And I wasn't feeling good, so I didn't go, but my mom's like, well, I'm going to stop by on the way home, and she comes over and she goes, I think I figured out what this match is all about. And I'm like, oh yeah, you know, I'm all listening and about, like, I'm going to hear something about somebody else, and just curious as heck. And she goes, well, there was a party. And I'm like, okay, you know, I'm just listening. And, you know, everybody was drinking. She made that clear. She was very drunk, you know, and saying this now, it just relates to so many other stories. She remembers going to the beach with her cousin and waking up on the beach all alone. And, you know, there was sand in places, though, that it shouldn't have been. And so she asked her cousin, something may have happened last night or whatever. And he said no. And so she believed him and just went on with her life. She felt weird asking him that, but, you know, it was interesting. So, and she was married to my birth certificate father at this time of this party, but he was not there because he had to work or something. He just wasn't there. And the cousin also married a year. I believe he was only married a year at that point. But I still, as she's telling me this, wasn't clicking. Okay, so I'm waiting for her to like tell me how I'm related to this person, you know? And she had to literally tell me that it's the cousin. And I'm like, what? Really? You know, I was like, oh, I still wasn't quite sure. I mean, I heard her, and she had to literally say, he is probably your father. And I was like, total shock, I'm sure, because I didn't respond in a freak out like she expected, and she was getting emotional, and I think it just naturally, I didn't want to also get emotional, you know. I wanted to be okay so that she could be okay, and, you know, like trying to minimize the magnitude of it, but not even really absorbing it all, you know. I just wanted her to leave, kind of, so that I could just think about what she just said. So yeah, and this was on a Sunday, and my kids go to their dad's on the weekend. I pick them up on Sunday, and I don't even know what I was doing the rest of the day. I knew I had to go pick them up, and I don't really remember the drive. I know what I was doing. I was looking in the mirror, like, for a while, and I think I was Facebook stalking, because I'm friends with all these people involved, and just making a collage and of side by sides and just getting my mind blown right now. Just hidden in plain sight is kind of what I felt like. Growing up, no one knew of any suspicions of this. But if you look at us, I look more like him than his only daughter. It's unreal.
What was your initial feeling about the fact that your
mother
your mother
was with her cousin? Kind of just like, no, that's not cool. Like, you don't do that. Like, I'm trying to relate in some way. I've gotten drunk before. I've messed up and made mistakes, but I'm trying to imagine myself at a party with family and some crazy thing with my cousin happening, and I just can't relate to that. I've been drunk with cousins and never, so to me it just...
Does she say that she was assaulted?
At first she did that. She's like, he must have taken advantage of me. I didn't know. I had no idea, and I'm cautious about that, because I think that's a defense to not be accountable for something this huge. At the same time, stuff can happen. There is a history of abuse in her childhood, so there's things that could justify that. But knowing this cousin, I don't see it. I just think they met not as children. They were more like teenagers when they met. Mm-hmm. And I think she told me he had a crush on her, and they had, pen palled when he was in the Navy. I think there's a little bit of a history, maybe an intimacy. I don't know, and I don't think I'll ever know. But, it's the forbidden fruit. And this one night, she could have been fighting with my dad or something and just surrendered to the feelings. I don't know. I'm not mad. I'm just, I guess, very grateful that she told me the truth, and as best she could, I guess. It's obviously when is a good time. And at this time, I'm already at the depths financially. I haven't been able to get a job. I don't have unemployment insurance. I'm just coasting by. My kids are in school. It's like I don't have daycare. Things have been falling apart. My kids are in sports. Their games are just starting. And that's another thing I have to deal with, and my mom and nobody else does. I have to see my birth certificate father at these games. Following week, that was a Sunday, I had my kids' conferences. I had a job interview. Like, I was finally moving somewhere and looking forward to, even though it's scary to start a new job. This is a whole new identity and just, like, change so much. And now this, I didn't get that job. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't start a job right now. So here I'm still unemployed, and this is consuming my everyday, all my thoughts every day. And it's been since, this was March when my mom told me. It was like March 13th.
It took 2 years from when you took your initial test to when you learned. So March of 2022, your mom tells you the truth. Mm-hmm. Do you reach out to your birth father?
So that was something that was like the next step. Who's going to reach out to him? My mom, and she's checking in on me every few days, and she's kind of in shock as well. But you know what I think really helped this situation to not ruin our relationship so far is the fact that I didn't know, and she had time to piece it together herself and prepare to tell me. Instead of her being the one being blindsided, she was able to gather her shame and bravery and courage to come to me. I think that made a big difference in how things are right now. She decided she was going to contact her cousin, and he had stopped kind of joining the family events when I was about 8 or something like that. Like, he was gone, moved away, like same state, but a few hours away. Kind of makes sense now, but as if maybe he knew or had a feeling, but what do you do? You know, she messaged him saying, like, text message, like she just pulls his number out because he's in her phone. So she said something like, hey, we really need to talk. Can you call me or something? And so she told him, and his response, she said, was, oh, wow. You know, I think he was kind of like me and just trying to make light of it. Like, oh, looks like you got a bigger family, or, you know, because I was afraid that he would just ghost this, or, you know, like, it's so scary, the fear of rejection in all of this. Like, I've already had enough rejection with the jobs and all of, you know, trying to start over, and who am I? And, so after she told him, he said he needed to talk to his wife and that he would get back to her. Well, so the waiting for him to get back to her. And I haven't said nothing to anybody else. My mom, I guess, told my sister, her other daughter, just so that I could have someone else to talk to. And I told a close friend, but, you know, they didn't understand how crazy. I mean, yeah, it's crazy, but, you know, nobody understands.
Yeah, right.
A few weeks go by, and my mom, we're anxious to hear something from her cousin. So she's wanting to message him. And I'm like, don't do that yet. Just chill. Like, meanwhile, I am like digging into inter-family stuff and trying to find anybody's stories like mine. I can't. Like, how do you do this? How do you even tell anybody, for one, your dad's not your dad, but then the whole other part of it that's so taboo and so awkward, and it's scary. So I'm also just, communication is huge with this. So I have a book, nonviolent communication book, and that book could change the world, I think, if we could just know how to communicate properly our needs and just getting to the point. And so I was diving into that, preparing to maybe reach out to this cousin, but really being careful. And so when my mom's like, oh, well, should I message her? I'm like, hold on, you know, need to be careful. And she was with me. She came over, and I'm like, maybe just ask the status and just ask one question. Don't you have all these questions? Just ask one. I don't want to scare him away, you know. So she asked, you know, if he had told his wife yet. He said, yes, she knows. And any further dealings will be between me and him. So she kind of was like a little offended, like, oh, he doesn't want to talk to me anymore, which she understands, but she kind of acted like she was a little offended. So, but that was huge news for me, just to know that he does want to connect or contact me at some point. So I wait some more, and nothing, you know, nothing. And so then I'm writing letters. I'm preparing, like, for my own sanity. I need to talk to him. I need something here, some acknowledgement of something. I shortened it down. I even wrote it out just because it might be helpful. This is what I said. It was pages, but now it's like a paragraph. I just said, hey, cousin, breaking the ice here. Bear with me. So after matching with your sister, the story from my mom, and just looking in the mirror, I'm aware you're likely my bio dad. I've been in a state of complete bewilderment. That's a word I figured out. The last 2 months, devastated, can't sleep, and feeling pretty alone with all of this. I need to connect somehow, but I'm scared and have been unsure how to reach out. It's all so damn uncomfortable. Would you be willing to connect with me how you're feeling and what your thoughts are. I could use some acknowledgement to help confirm this is real and ease my mind a bit. Would appreciate it. Thanks.
TaxAct knows small business owners can sometimes use a little help with their taxes. That's why TaxAct has Expert Assist, a team of live tax experts ready to answer any questions you may have. Think of them as your own personal sidekick. Not like one of those funny talking animal sidekicks, more like the super smart nerding out on tax code and business casual attire sidekick, but just as helpful and lovable. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
This episode is brought to you by Honda. Introducing the all-new, all-terrain Honda Passport Trail Sport, the most off-road capable Honda Passport Honda has ever dreamt up. The Passport features increased ground clearance, roof rails on all trims, and available specially developed all-terrain tires. And you'll stay comfortable with tri-zone climate control and available features like heated and ventilated front seats and a panoramic moonroof. Learn more at honda.com/passport.
Yeah. Did he respond?
He did, like within 30 minutes. He goes, "Hi, Shardae. I'm now aware I'm likely your bio dad. I have been afraid and ashamed of what my family will think of me. You have done nothing wrong and have a right to know. I just want to handle this carefully and how you want it to go." And then he said him and his wife were coming back from a vacation and gave me his number. So, which I did not just call him. You know, I was like, I got his number. Okay. You know. And so then eventually we planned to talk on the phone. Things are just going very slow, it seemed like, every day. So slow. But eventually we had the scheduled call. He called 1 minute before 10 a.m. And the first thing he said was, "I've suspected this for a long time. I thought this day may come." And I'm just like, oh, yeah. You know, and it went really well. The conversation, each of us were just like, "Oh, okay." I told him, I'm like, "Yeah, I did some breathing before the call." You know, he's like, "Yeah, I'm shaking." You know, like, so we're able to be vulnerable and talk about our stuff, which was so refreshing and sad because I haven't to this day had a real authentic conversation with my birth certificate dad, you know, on a feelings level like that. And it was nice.
Did he talk about, his side of things and what happened, or have you not discussed that?
As far as the story, I told him kind of what my mom said, and he didn't tell me his version of the story. He's acknowledged his part, and that's really all I need is just him to take the accountability that, yes, he's not denying it. That's all I need. I don't need to know the details of how drunk you were and how that went about. I really don't care.
Right.
So, but yeah, and his wife, he kept saying, his wife, you really need to talk to my wife. She has an almost identical story. And I'm like, what? And I reached out to her and we finally scheduled a time to talk. And she told me 2 years ago, she found out her dad is not her dad. And so she's an MP, and I told her, I'm like, oh my God, you're an MP. And she goes, what's that? And I'm like, oh, you don't even know what that is. I think she is the biggest miracle in this, because if it was not for her, she's the one who encouraged him to reach out to me as soon as he did. It's been amazing to have her support and encouragement. I don't know. It's like almost like it was supposed to happen this way so that she could be there for this, and it's amazing. So after that, he was preparing to tell his mother and his daughter. His wife had called to kind of give me a heads up and what days he might be doing that. Well, he ended up doing it the day before she told me. So I think it was just really eating at him, and because I had talked about wanting to meet them, and I'm like, I would be okay if we didn't tell anybody yet, and we could just plan a time I could come visit before shit hits the fan,
Yeah.
That was my fear, is not getting the chance to see him if something happens where it's now going to change his mind, or, something interferes with that. I was so scared of that. And I think he didn't like the idea of having to hide it and keep more secrets. And, that was awesome. He stepped up and he got brave and sat them down. I don't know how it all went, but I do know that his daughter was pretty upset. about him cheating on her mom. At this point, we had made a plan for me to come down, and I'm excited, but I'm nervous. Obviously, I just feel like
you haven't seen him in person since this revelation.
Childhood. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
And have you talked to your sister, his daughter?
No, nobody's reached out to me yet. And this was just about a week ago that he told them. So
this is fresh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And what was his mother's reaction?
I don't really know. I didn't hear that because I just spoke with his wife about it. We were talking about his daughter's reaction. But it sounds like, well, his response coming from her was that it went better than he thought it would. But she's upset. Daughter's upset.
Now, at this point, have you told your birth certificate father?
No.
So he does not know. Okay.
No. And my perspective has changed a little bit with him, too, how much pain this will put him through, even though he's caused me a lot of pain and never said sorry. But I don't want to be causing anybody pain ever. But obviously I know it's not my fault and blah, blah, blah.
No, it's not your fault. Has your mom indicated if she might tell him?
No. So that's another thing. She's like, her first reaction was like, oh my God, your dad's going to sue me. And I'm like, why? For child support that he's paid? And I'm like, if he did that, I don't think I would ever talk to him because then he'd be denying me as his child or,
Yeah.
But legally, I don't think he can do that. I'm trying to tell her, no, he can't do that. Yeah, he's going to be really pissed and he has a right to be, but there's nothing we can do. What matters most is what we do now with it. How can we make the best of it is what I hope for,
Did your mom ever say if she wondered when you were little? Or was this just a shock to her in 2022?
She was completely shocked. But how can you not wonder? I'm a mother. I kind of went through something similar. It's weird how things in my life can relate to have more compassion for stuff. When I got pregnant, it was a wild summer. Okay. I wasn't in any relationship, but I had a first boyfriend that I was reuniting with. But there was two guys that were too close together. And I had a scheduled abortion because he was with someone. This was like a secret fling. And then I'm like, no, I can't. I'm not going to do that because there was a potential that it could be my first boyfriend, the guy I was in love with, So I said, no, it's not yours. I'm going to tell him it's his. And this is just like, whoa, this is crazy to think that I've gone through this and listened to what I chose to do. And then as I'm pregnant, first boyfriend bought a house. We're making it work. It was a fairy tale. And I got news that this other guy died, while I'm pregnant. And there's a chance it could have been his. I went to his funeral pregnant. And I hadn't told my boyfriend any of this. So anyway, it's just like seeing both my kids now. They're identical, blonde hair, blue eyed. They look just like their dad. So, but there's no real confirmation. And, so I did wonder. I always wondered, and I wonder more now with all of this. So how can my mom not wonder and see me and see the resemblance and know the time frame? You don't not know as a woman who you slept with and the timing. But she said that, she was with my dad that same day. So if I was in her situation, I don't know what I would have done differently faced with something like that.
How are you processing this component of it? Because it is so taboo and
it is
hard to, talk about in our society. And, like you said, it is not your fault. And yet you're kind of saddled with the stigma. So how are you working through that?
How am I working through that? I'm just trying not to feel bad for existing. I'm afraid that me being born is just going to be a reminder of this shame. I hate that, but that's a feeling that I have. And I can't, I carry everybody's emotions too much, and I need to not. But I try to write stuff down. How am I processing? I don't know. I'm not. I disassociate a lot. I have kids that interrupt my processing, my healing. I crave, I go to the river and sit all day while they're in school, not sure where I should focus my energy because I need a job. I mean, like, things are not good. And then I have this that I can't get out of my head. As stuff has progressed, it's coming out on my mom's side. So my mom even told her dad, and his response was, "Shit happens." Like, that is the best response, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, just kind of not making it worse, I guess,
Yeah, just accepted it. Okay, don't want to hear anymore, probably, but all right.
Yeah.
But they don't get it. My grandpa's actually said to my mom that he's worried about my dad's response too. It needs to be carefully done. I think it all does, but
you're so fresh from this experience. I mean,
yeah.
It's been 3 months now that we're talking.
Yeah.
What are you hoping for?
Acceptance, I think, is the biggest thing. I think because my relationship with my birth certificate father has always been strained, I'm longing to really connect with this new dad. And it seems like he's anxious to meet my kids too. He said, those are my grandkids, and he's all about it. And that makes me excited that we're on the same page here to get to know each other. I'm afraid that his daughter's not going to like that, but maybe she'll come around. She is also 3 months younger than me.
Oh.
Yeah. I have a picture of him holding me as a baby in my baby book. I cherish that. Like, that's amazing to have that. It's very weird. I also have a picture of his wife at the time holding me, pregnant with, a picture of him and my dad in a wedding standing side by side. It's like, it could be a movie. It's just insane. But yeah, I just hope that my dad, it's going to be a make or break, I think. We're already strained. Either he can see that we're not biologically connected, there's no obligation to have a relationship, or there's nothing else connecting us other than love at this point. And I think that's what I can hope for. And maybe we can be authentic and closer. Like, that's what I wish. But I'm trying not to get my hopes up,
Have you allowed yourself to cry and kind of feel all of the feelings? I know you said you dissociate a lot, but how are you working through your emotions?
They all come out when I'm alone. First week, I was having to go in the bathroom and close the door. I've had a therapist since before COVID, just from my burnout with kids, life balance and relationships and anxiety. And
has your therapist been helping you work through this?
Sort of, listening and helping me make decisions or see the light of things, get organized in my mind. I think he specializes in cognitive behavioral therapy, which I keep hearing about EMDR stuff. And we're going too long between meetings. I need like a weekly at least. And it's 2 weeks. And I'm like, so much is going on. I'm feeling all these feelings. I'm also, because I'm not working, I don't have the best insurance to get these specialized therapists. So, and it's tough. So I luckily have done some work on shame. I've read a couple Brené Brown books. I've got the Dare to Lead and The Gift of Imperfection. That's a good one to process shame, but also to just help, like, my mom and her shame, and just that's all what this all revolves around, and how people respond because of it, and the fear. And I have more compassion knowing the more I can know, I guess. But
can you talk more about your feelings for your mom at this point?
I love her. I feel like there's a little bit of more of a filter now, because she is emotional and wants to not be the bad person. So she might react impulsively with stuff she shouldn't. You know, I have compassion for her. I know she's just got broken parts that affect the way that she handles things. She's trying to do the right thing. She knows this is painful for me. I don't think she understands the depths of pain that I feel on a cellular level. And, you know, I try to explain it because I think knowing the emotions and how to verbalize them is so important for people to try and understand. And what I've noticed is just you need to relate the emotions to emotions that people feel. Like with grief, you know, there's similar feelings even though you haven't gone through the same thing, but you can connect on a level of understanding with that emotion. But still, it's a lot.
How do you feel about yourself through all this?
I feel that there was something about me my whole life that was different. And I feel like this confirms that. Like there's a reason. I don't know. It helps me feel better about myself if I can help somebody get through their crap, even the specifics of mine, and just give them hope and some guidance, or at least some sort of process the way I went through, or just it is needed. Obviously, it's just every day is another person joining the Facebook groups, you know, and
yeah.
God, it is so painful. I feel like I'm hopeful that a lot of healing can happen from long buried traumas and pain. I'm hopeful that knowing where I came from is going to little by little heal those confusions about, well, why do I have freckles? That's not a problem, but why do I act this way? Or why do I love doing this when my dad never understood why I'm so artistic? And he wants you to, you know, the more you need a career, and I'm a good singer. I'm a very artistic person that wasn't acknowledged really. And it was more like, oh, you can't be better than my daughter, like my stepmom, like you're standing out too much, or, you know, don't be better, or I don't know. I know I need a lot of help, and I struggle with asking for it, but I don't know. All my other problems seem a lot smaller now that this is here, but it's like the world still, you gotta make money, and you gotta go to work, and you gotta keep going. And I feel for people that, you know, it's one thing to not have a job and you really need one, but I'm so thankful for the time. Like I've just stopped worrying about all the bills not getting paid. I just had to take my kids, be a mom, and find space to be alone and process. Like that's been just what I've been doing. And eventually that's just not going to work for much longer, but I don't know. I keep thinking, well, once I get to meet him, I'm going to feel so good, and I'm just going to have all this confidence and go get a job.
What advice do you have for parents that might be keeping a DNA surprise from their child?
I've thought about this, and everyone says, tell them, don't keep it a secret. Well, that's obviously a good idea, but I think first, the parent needs to prepare. I think they need to, first of all, know they're going to find out. It's not going to be hidden whether you tell them or they find out through these tests. And they need to do work on that shame that they're carrying, so that the ramifications of it coming out, they'll be better able to not only have compassion for themselves and empathy, but empathy and compassion for their child when they find this out. Because I think the unhealed shame is so destructive on children that find this out from their parents. Like they're the bad guy because that shame is now revealed. Like if they can do that work, this can go a lot better for everybody and cause less pain. I think it's a big deal. As far as age, being an adult, we all have established lives and identities. So maybe not when they've got a family and believe they know who they are. before they get to high school, maybe, when they're figuring themselves out, they need to know what to do with the rest of their life. And this would be a time to tell them so they can decide, what to do with it, I think.
Yeah, that's great advice. You're so fresh into this process, but
I know.
Do you have any advice for someone who might be in your position?
Yeah. Take a time out. If you have a job, take time off. You're going to need to feel what you feel. You need to have safe space to cry and not hold it in. Join those groups. That's a game changer. It's hard when people find out they don't know the acronym or the NPE. I didn't, but I Googled enough and figured it out. So take it. I know there's so many questions, so many spiraling of thoughts, but just try to write them down. Be careful who you talk to about it. In my case, I had to be really careful, but because you don't know, you're fragile, and people can take it the wrong way, and might discourage you from wanting to tell people, so just make sure you trust that person who you talk to, and find a therapist if you don't already have one. I hear it a lot, but the trauma, the EMDR, because support is so important, and it can feel really lonely. Get some Brene Brown books if you need to communicate. A good way of communicating, get that nonviolent communication book. It's got steps. I like steps. I think there's just a reason that we're going through this, because of the whole DNA stuff, and we're the beginning of what's to come. So we're kind of creating this foundation of the process from scratch, and it's tough, but I think a lot of good will come from the crap we're going through right now, hopefully for the future, the people that find this out.
Yeah, I hope so too. Well, Shardae, thank you so much for your vulnerability and coming on and sharing your story and working to eliminate the shame and taboo around your situation. I hope you feel proud of yourself, and I hope that your journey continues in a positive way, and that when you do tell your father, it's a positive outcome. And good luck meeting your bio dad.
Thank you.
Please stay in touch and let me know how it goes.
And thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks again to Shardae for her vulnerability and telling her story. If you have a DNA surprise story that you'd like to share, please email dnasurprises@gmail.com. And if you haven't yet, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Until next time.